Hi, welcome to Real Film Snobs. I'm Angela Yeager. Brian couldn't be with us this week. He is literally buried in a mound of books. So I have a special guest host this week, Brad Wortman. Welcome to the show, Brad.
Thanks, Angel. It's good to be here.
Thanks, Brad. And Brad is a longtime friend of the show. He's a movie buff, sci-fi fan, apparently a carpenter, jack of all trades, and a volunteer on this show. And he does all sorts of things. What's your favorite position on the crew, Brad? Besides guest host, of course.
Which one pays the most?
They're all about the same.
Oh, then
They're all zero.
I'll
They're
take
all
floor
zero.
director.
Floor director, okay. So Brad goes to the Ashland Independent Film Festival every year and is here this week to tell us about some of the films he saw there. The Ashland Independent Film Festival has been going for quite a few years. Do you know about how long?
Yeah, I think I've been going now for probably 10 years, and it is probably about 15 years old.
Yeah.
And it always happens the first weekend of April. Normally it's first weekend of April. Starts on Thursday afternoon, about noon, and then it will go through Monday night.
Okay, so it's about 4 or 5 day
Yeah.
festival.
Yeah.
And in recent years, it's been getting quite a bit of even national acclaim, especially as a great festival for filmmakers,
Right.
for independent filmmakers, and it was featured in some pretty prestigious magazines and things. And so I know you've gone for 10 years, and you go every year with Paul Turner for the Dark Side Cinema. Is that pretty much right?
Yeah.
For quite a few years at
Yeah,
least. So
yeah.
you guys go together, and then you try to see different films at the
Right.
festival. So I'm curious, was there a specific vibe this year, or one of the things Ashland is known for is the documentaries that they show at the festival. Was there any certain themes you saw popping out of the films you saw this year?
Yeah, one of the things I noticed that they've been expanding the number of films that they show and the number of venues they show at. Normally, when we first started, it was only at there was one theater that they showed at, and that had 5 screens. Then they started expanding to show at the Armory, and they would just do some evening shows. And now they're doing pretty much full days at the Armory. So, and also at the Ashland, the commercial theater. There's another one down the street. So between the two of those, if you think about it, there's 5 shows a day except for Thursday. So there's 24 shows in total, and there's or 24 slots, I should say. And so there's 6 at the Ashland Street Cinema.
Is that their independent theater?
Yeah, that's their independent theater. So they have probably getting close to 200 films or more that are being shown during that period of time.
Oh, wow.
So it used to be that we could go and you could see every single film.
No way to see 200.
No way to do that.
So how many did you see this past year?
I did the full boat.
So you saw 24?
24.
So 24 is the max you can see. That's every slot, basically.
Yeah.
So you just don't eat for 4 days, or a lot of popcorn, a lot of sneaking munchies into the theater and stuff?
That's the whole idea is popcorn, candy, anything that doesn't fit in my diet. That's what I eat that whole time.
Right. Okay. Well, sounds like fun. Was there any other, particular themes that you saw emerging in terms of the types of films or filmmakers? Does it tend to be more American films or international or a mix?
It's mostly American-made films. There are a few international films, mostly documentaries. What I did notice this year is that the drama films got substantially better.
Oh, okay.
I saw a few of those. This year I focused primarily on documentaries.
Right.
But Paul was looking at films that would be maybe commercially available at him, and so I see more commercially viable films. But the thing I liked about going to Ashland is that I get to see films that I'll never get to see probably anywhere else.
In the theater, yeah. I liked that about film festivals too. And occasionally you choose wrong. When I went to the Bend Film Festival this last year, I ended up seeing a few that ended up showing at Salem Cinema here in Salem. But then there were several that I'm sure that I will never see, that I'm really glad I had a chance to see, that I'm sure will never be released in theaters, at least any theaters here. So.
Yeah. And it's interesting that there are other festivals around Oregon. There's now film festivals in LeGrand. I see that there's one in Klamath Falls.
LeGrand and Klamath Falls. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. In fact, the one in LeGrand is in September. So we may end up having to do a special on that. But it's just like for one weekend.
Oh, okay. Are you planning to go?
thinking about it.
Yeah, that'll
thinking
be
about
fun.
it.
So you've picked all mostly, I think, 4 documentaries for that your favorites of the festival to
Correct.
talk about with us this week. So do you want to go ahead and launch into your first one here?
Sure, sure. The first film we're going to talk about tonight is titled Dark Money. There's also a book by that name, Dark Money, and essentially they're a similar topic. The film deals with campaign finance and campaign contributions. And while you might think that that's a pretty dry topic, it's really a very fascinating film. It's set in Montana. And for anybody who's been to Montana, you know it's a beautiful state, lots of mountains, but it's also a very Republican state, with the exception of probably like John Tester, who's one of the senators from Montana. And the film starts out talking about how in the early days of the state that the Copper Kings, as they were known, managed, essentially bought off all the politicians and managed the whole political infrastructure in the state. And the reason, so they talk about that because in the 1990s, Montana, the citizens decided they were fed up with that, and they passed what had become the most strict campaign financing laws in the country.
In the 1990s?
Yeah, in
Okay.
1997, I believe it was.
Okay, interesting.
And so these campaign financing laws were passed. And for example, I believe that for a state candidate that you could only donate $130 per person to that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when Citizens United decision came down from the Supreme Court, was it 2011, I believe it was?
Yeah, around.
That played havoc with the campaign finance laws in Montana, and all of a sudden you started seeing a lot of outside money coming into the state. And the way that it expressed itself is that, like I said, Montana's a very Republican state, but it's also very filled with a lot of what would be considered moderate Republicans. And all of a sudden you started seeing all these ads and flyers and stuff that would appear that were derogatory towards these candidates and promoting other candidates which were much more conservative. Mm-hmm. And so the film talks about how these ads started coming in place and how the state's attorney general started doing an investigation and how this was working its way through the courts to decide whether or not the laws would stand or if they would be replaced by Citizens United. And it's still an ongoing legal battle, but it turns out it's just a very fascinating look at how our campaign finance system works in miniature, especially because in a state where it's almost all Republican, you wouldn't think that there would be something like that going on.
Right, you think.
Yeah.
But it sounds like even there's a huge difference between the moderates and the more extreme on the right side, and so there's special interests that have certain things they're wanting to get out of the political system, which is why a lot of folks who are in favor of campaign finance reform would say we need it. Here in Oregon, we've tried multiple times to pass campaign finance reform with no luck, and many states I think have suffered the same fate, have tried to pass it and haven't been able to. So it's interesting to see a state where you would think you have a majority of people maybe who voted for it, or who were in favor of it, and they still haven't been able to keep it due to the citizens. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, one of the things I really liked about it was the fact that they had all these interviews with the politicians who, these are people who live in little towns in Montana, and they're trying to. Everybody knows everybody else, and they're all trying to represent the interests of their citizens. And all of a sudden, they're getting these essentially hate mail or alternative facts that being broadcast about them, and it's a story about how that has manifested itself, but also a story about how the people of Montana have
kind of rallied
behind them.
It. Yeah, that's nice.
And so one of the people they talk about is John Tester, who's a Democratic senator from Montana, who is famous now in the news. So
interesting. Yeah. And it seems like it would have caused some divisiveness as well with some of this ugly stuff happening in such a small state where everybody knows everybody.
Right. But it's, like I said, again, it's amazing how much everybody's rallied behind the people that they support to fight back, push back
On
and-
the money, yeah. Interesting. Yeah. So Kimberly Reed is the director I see here, and do you know much about her? Was she at, I don't know if you tend to go to the films where the directors are there, or was she at the film, or did she?
She was, but I did not get a chance to talk to her.
Okay, so you didn't hear.
But I didn't hear
Her
it,
name sounds familiar, and that's why I was wondering if you knew what she did before. I'll have to look her up later because her name sounds really familiar to me. So
Yeah,
I wonder if I've
but
seen
she did it. She did a great job. I mean, like I said, for something that's a legal, kind of a legal drama, it was a fascinating story.
Yeah, it sounds
Fascinating
interesting.
story.
Okay, so your next doc that you want to talk about.
Oh yeah, it's called A Tuba to Cuba, which is another film, 2018, directed by T.G. Harrington and Danny Clinch.
Okay.
Thank you. And this is another interesting story about if you've ever been to New Orleans and you know about or have heard about the Preservation Hall Jazz Band. It's one of the premier jazz groups, jazz playing groups in New Orleans. And it was started by a man named Alan Jaffe back in the 1960s. Well, he has since passed, but this film is about his son, Ben Jaffe, who is now the leader of the Preservation Hall Jazz Band, and his efforts to take the Preservation Hall Jazz Band to Cuba. And this is during the time when the embargo had been lifted. And what he wanted to do was to take the band to Cuba to look at how the roots of jazz come from the roots of the music in Cuba, because jazz has a lot of background with African music, and so anyway, it's just a fascinating look at how these players when they get there, how they're greeted by the people of Havana, how they interact and play with some of the top named artists in Cuba. They play in Havana, they go to Santiago, they start at the end of the film, they're playing in the streets just like as if they were going down the streets of New Orleans playing with each other. And it was just a musicals documentaries aren't always my thing, but it was just wonderfully done.
Oh yeah, sounds great.
Yeah, and one of the things
It's actually called A Tuba to Cuba.
A Tuba to Cuba. Yeah.
Okay, I think we might have a typo. My fault. I think I had a tube to Cuba in the graphics. So for those looking at the screen, it should say tuba to Cuba. Sorry about that.
But and there's some poignant moments that Ben Jaffe is interspersed with all this great music and all this dynamic action. There are scenes where Ben Jaffe is taking his tuba, and I didn't realize one of the things in New Orleans was you would put in lettering around the tubas and your band instruments to tell you which band you are. So he's literally taking like black electrical tape and he's writing out Preservation Hall Jazz Band on the rim of his tuba. But as he's doing this, he's talking in this very quiet, very mild voice about how this is a dream of his father. And then you'd switch to this scene where they're all dancing and playing and having a great time. And
so this is more of an uplifting documentary, it sounds like, compared to the previous ones.
Yeah,
You've got a good mix here. That's
Yeah.
the thing about documentaries. Everyone thinks they have to be like boring and factual, but documentaries are just like fiction films, and they can have a huge range of emotions and feelings. So like, it's not like Dark Money was much more kind of darker subject
It was
matter,
a
much
thriller.
more serious. A
I mean,
thriller,
it was
really.
a legal thriller.
A legal thriller, and this is sort of like a musical, uplifting musical. It sounds like, yeah.
An expounding of musical talent and but also showing the commonality that we have and the shared history that we have with Cuba.
Interesting. Do you know, were you able to meet the filmmakers on this one or hear them talk at all about the film, or?
Yes, Ben Jaffe was there
Oh,
to talk
wow.
about it. So he was there at the end of the film, and was taking questions from the audience.
Oh, okay.
And just talking about whatever
But
interesting.
he's in the film, not directing it.
Yes.
Though. Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
he is.
Oh, interesting. That sounds
So.
like a lot of fun. Okay, so if you're into music and jazz and good documentary, sounds like Tuba to Cuba is the one to check out. Do you know if either of these, Dark Money or Tuba to Cuba, might come to theaters or?
I believe Tuba to Cuba is going to be on POV, on public television.
Oh, on public television.
Yep.
Okay, yeah.
I have not heard about whether Dark Money is going to be.
So
anything.
yeah, some of these are going to be hard to find. So we'll have to do an update at some point for our fans on the show and let them know where they can find some of these movies
Right.
if we figure it out. So, okay, so your next one.
Yeah, so my next film is called Skid Row. It's called Skid Row Marathon. It's a 2017 film directed by Mark Hayes, and it is the story of anybody who have been to LA or you've always heard the term Skid Row know that Skid Row is an actual place in LA, and it's the story of a group of people where at the Midnight Mission on Skid Row. And it's a story of a man named Craig Mitchell, who is the LA Superior Court judge. And he had been a prosecutor, he's been a judge all of his life, and he's also a runner. And he decides to undertake the task of forming a running group of people who are at this Midnight Mission. And Midnight Mission is filled with people who are dealing with drug problems, or they're fresh out of prison, or they're having some other problems with
They're
their
in
life.
crisis in
They're
some
in
way.
crisis, right? And so it's a story about people who join this running group, and he gets up every morning at 5 a.m. and he runs down to the mission, meets up with this group of people, and they go running. And
You have energy to go running?
yeah.
I don't know if I have energy to go running. So
Yeah, and his only requirement is you just keep moving forward. You know, you just keep trying, and the whole idea is it gives people something to focus on. It gives them something to live for in their life, and as they're trying to work out their problems. And I wrote down some of the names of some of the people who were there. I mean, there was a guy who was a drug addict who wanted to be an artist. You know, there was another guy who was a parolee, and he was in trouble because he was a parolee, but he had had been a member of a gang before, and he had come across a situation where there was some gangbangers interacting with the police, and he stepped up to just kind of ask a question, and they ended up arresting him, and he's potentially going to have his parole violated. You know, there's a woman who was named Rebecca who had come from Seattle, and she was involved with drug use and had a child, and she's trying to become like a surgical assistant. She wants to get her degree. And it's just all these people they're trying to do better with their lives, and the running is a way for them to come together as a group and give them spirit and strength and a sense of community, you know, for themselves. And one of the other nice things was as the movie goes on, they get funding and they're actually able to go abroad. You know, so they go to Ghana and run in a marathon in Ghana. And and they go to Naples, Italy, and they run in a marathon there. And you know, for them, it's an experience. These folks, it's this experience completely out of their background, and so it's just it's uplifting, but it's also very real. There are some people, for instance, there's one guy who starts his own little luggage company and a little store, and one day he just disappears, and they don't know where he's gone to. You know, and so it's very real. It's about people. You know, they're trying their best to make it. Sometimes they don't make it, and this guy Craig Mitchell, the judge, is very retrospective about it. You know, he's like, well, you know, they come in, they go out, they come back again, and we'll still be here. We'll still be here to be there for them.
What gave him the idea to do it? Is he just a runner himself? He's always enjoyed running, or what? Why did he think running of all things, as opposed to any other sort of like reform type program, art or anything else? You know, did they talk about that?
Yeah, he is a runner, and he find out during the film that he's actually has he's actually got a fused spine. So he's running in a lot of pain, But
Wow.
he sees it that he's been a prosecutor for a lot of years, putting people like this in jail, and he's been a judge, and he just wants to do something to make their life better.
He just sees the system as fail. You know, he doesn't want to just keep putting people behind.
Right.
Interesting.
Right.
And it's all filmed in LA. And so, what were the filmmakers there, or some of the people that participated in the film in Ashland, or no?
Yeah, there was one person, this Rafael Cabrera. He was the one who the parolee, and he was there, and I actually got a chance to talk to him. And that's one of the things that I always liked about Ashland is you get to meet the people who are in these films, and he is such a cool dude.
Yeah.
I mean, he's there. He's going to always be there for everybody, and he'd be like a counselor, you know.
Is that what he does, or what does he do now?
Yeah,
he was in the program.
Yeah, that's what he's really doing now. He's a counselor.
Oh, okay.
But he was serving his time as a parolee, and he was looking, and so, but he was very calm about the whole thing and very retrospective, and he was a wonderful, wonderful person to talk to.
Yeah, that's really cool. Do you know if this filmmaker has made anything else before, or
No,
no?
no.
But it's just another. So this is another one that sounds like it's more on the inspirational side.
Right, and I think that this one is also going to be on PBS.
Okay, so also on public television.
Yeah.
So several of these got picked up, or probably were already going to be maybe before.
Right.
I don't know if do distributors go to the Ashland Film Festival like looking for films to pick
They
up?
do.
Or, they do.
They do.
Okay, I didn't
And
know
I-
if it
I
had that
think-
kind of reputation or
And
not.
I think Skid Row Marathon premiered at that, and that's another thing is you find more films at Ashland getting premiered.
Oh, really? So
there.
Skid Row Marathon premiered there.
I believe
oh, wow.
so.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Do you know if any of these will be showing at the local art house theaters, or not that you're aware of yet?
Not
Yeah.
that I'm aware
Okay.
of.
Okay. Well, that sounds like another good one. So very different. You picked a good mix.
Ah,
So let's curious about this next one based on the title. Go ahead and tell us about that one.
right. So yeah, so the next film we're going to talk about, it's called Two Trains Running. This was also a premiere. It was a premiere for Oregon premiere.
Oregon premiere.
So I think it had also shown at like South by Southwest maybe. And this one is a film that is set in June of 1964 during Freedom Summer. And this is at a time when there were activists traveling to Mississippi to join the civil rights movement against violence there was violence by the KKK and racist police forces. So this is a tale of two groups of students. One group from New England who was traveling down to Mississippi to join this anti-KKK racist civil rights, join the civil rights movement to register voters. And another group of people who were from California who were traveling out, and their mission was they were trying to track down a blues legends. And one of the things you have to remember, there were people like Leadbelly and other blues singers who just kind of came out of the woodwork. You'd maybe hear their music, and then they would go back in. But the reason you hear about people like Leadbelly is because there were groups like this second group, who were actually going out and finding these guys. Because there was money to be made if you could find them, because at the time this is all when the folk music was going on, and so it was getting more popular for their brand of music. And so it was just a tale of these two groups of kids basically coming into Mississippi right at the time of all this
For
turmoil,
very different reasons.
for
yeah.
very different reasons at the time of the turmoil of
Well,
the,
in ways sort of related, because there were people involved with civil rights that obviously were into some of the folk and the blues music. But yeah, it sounds like, but theirs was a little different. The California people were just trying to seek out the old blues musicians. And
But I mean, this is truly the tale of, like, these guys had, $20 and an old car, and they would drive out to
so this
California.
was for 1964. So is this told in flashback, or is it the people today talking about, how is it told visually?
Both. They were
Okay.
talking to the people who were there. They would talk to like record producers, and it was just like, yeah, man, we got in our 56 Chevy, and we had $20 in our pocket, and we decided to drive out from California, and we're going to look for these guys. And they're just kind of driving around.
But they were
looking.
on a train or
No,
driving?
they drove.
Oh,
They
okay.
were in a car, and they would just drive out, and they were just kind of like throwing spaghetti at the wall. They were hoping to just come across some of these guys, and they would stop in this little town, and they would talk to somebody. Then they'd say, "Hey, yeah, I knew this guy. I met him once, and he was like over in this town at the time." So they'd go over there, and then they'd track back and forth. So it was just
So do they have any footage from the time, or is it all people now talking about it? I guess that's what I was
Both.
trying to figure. Oh,
Both.
so they have footage. So they managed to shoot some footage themselves at that time.
Or like television footage, or they would play the music that they were.
Were there any other specific musicians they talked about besides Leadbelly?
Yeah, the one guy, there was like Gary Clark Jr. There was Skip James.
Skip James, a big one.
Yeah, Skip James. Son House, and I think those were the main ones that they were talking about.
And these were just like college kids from California, or is it any specific? Or were they? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, just college kids. They were just big music fans, and they wanted to try to discover these artists and find them again.
Yeah, interesting. So, what did you like so much about this particular film?
I liked the history aspect of it. That these two groups of kids were just like within a few miles of each other. They never met, but their paths were just like crossing each other.
Right. They both went to the same state. And
yeah,
interesting. So we talked about 4 documentaries that were all terrific. So that you really liked: Dark Money, Tuba to Cuba, Skid Row Marathon, and 2 Trains Runnin', right?
Runnin'.
And then, I wanted just real fast while we have like 30 seconds. The weirdest film you saw at the festival.
Well, yeah, I think it was because it was the last film, my 24th film, at 10 o'clock at night.
Right,
on
so you're
Monday
delirious,
night.
basically.
And
Yeah.
I'm already kind of wigging out, and I saw this little short film called The Burden, and to be at that hour and see an animated film that starts out in a hotel lobby with anchovies talking to each other, like this anchovy comes out and it's going, "Poor me, poor me." And
Yeah,
you
you
just,
thought
you know,
you're like, am I awake or asleep or what? So that was very weird. And sometimes that's why you go to film festivals too, just to see something totally weird that you would never see otherwise.
But it was
right?
great.
Yeah, sounds like fun. Well, thank you so much, Brad, for being on the show. It was so much fun.
Thank you.
And we're both fans of documentaries, so I will look forward to checking some of these out. As always, you can find us on our website at realfilmsnobs.com, and we'll post a list of the movies that Brad talked about from the Ashland Film Festival on there. You should subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter as well. Here on CCTV, Scan TV in Silverton, CAM, Corvallis Access Media in Corvallis, and listen to us on KMUZ. As always, I'd like to thank our fantastic crew, our wonderful sponsors. Have a great day and great movies.